What is This Is Rebellion podcast? I started this thing with a blank slate, compelled like a madman, not knowing what it is, what I'm doing, or what it's going to become. Recently, I've realized that fundamentally I want this to be based on kindness, to create a safe space for people to truly be themselves, to speak freely about their opinions, their feelings, and what matters to them. I love speaking to people in this way. I think every single person on this planet has at least one good story in them. And I also believe and really believe that there is more that connects us than divides us. In this episode, I speak to Mal Payne, who is a psychic medium and a spiritual life coach, and more. I think even if your beliefs don't quite align with Mal's, I think there's a lot to take away from this conversation. So I'm not going to hold this thing up anymore. Relax and enjoy. As always, I love you all. This is Rebellion. Welcome to This is Rebellion podcast. I'm here with Mal Payne. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Really excited
good?
for this. Yeah, really
Yeah.
excited.
So we're here today to talk about spirituality. Can you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Yes. So, as you know, I do a little bit of mediumship work. So, I'm an international psychic medium. I say a little bit, but actually, quite quite a lot of what I do is my mediumship work now. And I guess that progressed from being a spiritual life coach. So that's something that I've done for a few years now. And I also work as an energy healing therapist and teacher.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
work with energy healing therapies like Reiki and things like that.
So did the life coaching naturally grow into
Yes,
spirituality and the
yeah,
kind
I
of
think
those
so.
avenues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I've always been really passionate about personal development and looking at, neuroscience and the mind and how it works. And then as life unfolded, my faith became much stronger. And just naturally, I think people used to say to me, how do you know that? How do you know that this is how I feel? And for me, it was just an intuitive way to work as a life
Yeah.
coach. And I then understood that through my journey, actually, there's a bit more here. I'm being quite guided. And it just evolved into spiritual life coaching. It just gave that extra, more personalized, intuitive guidance for my clients, which was amazing.
That's amazing. I grew up and I was raised. I think people should know this that I was raised. Uh, my mum's side were clairvoyant. It was seen more of like a religion in our house. But my nan always used to say to me at a young age, like, just always question everything and choose your own path. You don't have to believe this is what I believe.
Yes.
And I've always left the kind of door open to
Hmm.
the idea of there's more. I mean, I think you'd be ignorant to kind of say there's nothing else, there's this. And
Yeah.
we've had chats. And
Yes.
I feel personally, just the limited times I've known you and the experiences, kind of the conversations we've had together, I feel like, you're naturally kind of empathic. You pick up on people's feelings and kind of, and
Yes.
I've seen some amazing things myself as well. Like some things kind of saying things to people, that
Yes.
there's no way you could
Yeah.
have. So how's that like,
I think deep down, if we were all really honest and brave for some of us, right, that you can't deny that there is more, right?
yeah.
There is more to life than
Hmm.
just this physical body and our mind. And I often talk to my friends and family and clients around, the holistic aspect of
Hmm.
who we are,
Hmm.
as beings. And I was speaking to this great coach, and he spoke about, often we are so focused on being human doings
Hmm.
rather than human beings. And
Yeah.
I thought that's such a great way to put it. And it's something that I've more recently been bringing to my clients, that actually, when we look at our body holistically with the mind, the body, and the soul, which is usually the last one that gets sort of put aside, unless you've been obviously brought up in a very spiritual family or maybe a religious family, that there is that concept, whether you call it, God, universe, higher power, angel, spirit guides, whatever it is. I think we all know deep down inside
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
there is something more that is there assisting us.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have, and I know I've had my, fair few experiences of some really scary things happening in my life. And actually, something somewhere just made me hold on to that hope. And I think as our difficult, life experiences unfold, it's so important to hold on to that and what it means for you. Because like you said, I truly believe there is no right or wrong way.
No.
It's
Yeah.
so important, as long as it feels aligned and it feels natural and it doesn't feel forced. That's when you know that it's right for you.
We were having a little conversation before this about that concept and about following your gut and intuition. And I recently have decided to do music again. And I'm not looking to be a rock star or anything. I just felt like I needed to be me,
Yes.
and kind of reminded myself that maybe I'd got a little bit lost
Hmm.
and not followed my intuition. And back when I was doing music, I was being more true to myself. More doors were opening for me.
Hmm.
So is that something you see often in people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fear kicks in, right? And sometimes people say to me, how do I know what's my mind and what's my ego and what's my intuition? And actually, from my own experience, it was something that I kept telling myself for quite some time. I don't know what my gut feeling is. I don't know what
Mm.
it's telling me. And the best way and the easiest way for us all to tap into that and dive into it is through your emotions, right?
Mhm.
Through what your body is telling you. Your body will signal something to
Mhm.
you, whether it feels really wonderful or whether it feels off. Now, there's an extra layer to that when it comes to the soul and the gut feeling and what your heart, right, its intention, your soul is telling you to do or asking you to do.
Mhm.
And a really great way, which I think will help you and and hopefully people listening to this, that I talk to my clients about, is the feeling that you feel after a thought or an emotion or something that has happened. So for example, if you've had a conversation with someone and maybe they've misunderstood you, or you've had a fallout with someone and they're very angry and maybe
Mhm.
unintentionally or
Mhm.
intentionally sometimes projected that onto you. And you feel this almost like this injustice or this rage within you, and you can get quite emotional or quite upset about that. The reason why we get upset about these situations a lot of the times when you're connecting with that gut feeling is because your soul is saying, Chris, this isn't you.
Mm.
Right? This doesn't sit right. And
Mhm.
so sometimes we can go, oh, maybe I'm too sensitive or I'm emotional. No, your soul is saying, listen,
Mhm.
right? It's knocking at the door going, listen,
Yeah.
this isn't you. This is why you're angry and this is why you're upset. So
Mhm.
there's a lot to be said about our emotional reactions and responses and how we can use that to tune in,
Yeah.
right? Of course, we have to be mindful, and I work with clients, obviously I have to be very mindful of the very close line of mental health and spirituality,
Yeah.
because obviously anxiety and depression and many other conditions can trigger us into things that aren't a real threat. But I often find that even right underneath that
Mhm.
anxiety or that depression, your soul is saying, this doesn't feel good to me, this doesn't feel
Mm.
right,
Mm.
and this is why I'm making your body, right, it's manifesting as a
Yeah.
physical ailment
Mhm.
in some way, to almost like call you, snap you out of it and be
Right.
like, listen
Yeah.
to me, I'm
Yeah.
telling you. And similarly, when things feel amazing as
Mhm.
well,
Yeah, yeah, right.
right? Like
Yeah.
maybe, the birth of your children, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you can't deny that euphoria feeling, your wedding day or the best day of your life, whenever that was.
Yeah.
We can't dismiss that. We can't deny just this incredible bliss and peacefulness
Or
that
if you
comes over
do, then
us.
you're not truly in tune. Is that
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
think with the noise of today, like
Mhm.
being very noisy and having so many avenues of so many avenues of distraction. So social media,
Mhm.
you can literally watch so many things on TV now,
Yeah.
video games, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now I do all of those, so I
Mhm.
can't. But what I'm saying is, there are so many ways to switch off now
Yes.
than when I was
Mhm.
16. When I
Yeah.
say that, I sound really old, but like everything's gone so fast,
Yes, and that's the
you
thing,
know,
like, it shifted and it
and it continues
continues
to
to do
shift.
so,
I have
right?
this theory that, like, those things are like they can, for young people especially, I think, can it's maybe set another paradigm of existence. So
Mhm.
you create another self, another version of yourself to be on
Yeah.
Facebook or
Mhm.
Instagram,
Yeah.
and you're 16 years old and you don't really know who you are yet.
Yes.
There's another layer to peel there
Yeah.
to get to who you really are, isn't there? Do you know? So
Yeah.
I worry that maybe I worry all the time anyway. That I worry for people who invest too much into that and lose
Yeah.
themselves. Is that something you could do? Maybe is that something you see or something you can
I think
understand?
so, but I think what you'll and this is like a theme that I find as we get older, and I don't mean like elderly. I just mean as we evolve
Mhm.
as humans,
Mhm. Mhm.
as spiritual beings, right,
Mhm.
in this beautiful vessel that it is
Yeah.
our body.
Yeah.
That it really is about those experiences and the experiences that humble us and reminds us
The
of
ground you,
right,
the
that
very
ground
real
us.
ones.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
usually not the nicest ones in that
No.
moment. But when we look back and we reflect, we go, wow, that really is the thing that, and people will say, I want to be the best version of myself. I think it's always about remembering that you are perfect as you are. And it's almost like peeling off all the layers of everything that society, family, friends, teachers,
But it is a
it's
journey
been
for some people. For some
absolutely,
people, or
absolutely.
for a lot of people, even.
Yeah. And it's a lot less around becoming someone better or greater and re-becoming the real authentic version of you, right? You'll know this. You've got little boys. Like they
Mhm.
don't ever look at themselves at a young age and go, "Oh my God, I need to be different. I need to be
I
better."
love
They
that
are
about them actually
right,
because they're just them. Yeah, yeah,
unapologetically
absolutely, just who they are.
perfect.
Yeah,
Their
and
authentic self.
yeah, and we allow that.
100%.
Bo wants a mullet.
Right?
We're both looking at each other like, well, what?
Yes.
But we just went, yeah, of course. Like that's what he wants.
Absolutely.
That's so
And you see how that flourishes and how actually it can be dimmed as well, depending on, how that's addressed, whether it's as parenting or as schooling. When you get told, you'll probably have your own personal experience. So I certainly have mine of
hmm
this,
hmm
you're too much or you're too loud or you've got to be quiet and you've got to sit still and you've got to do these things. It's almost like these layers, these masks that actually get put on you.
yeah.
When we then go into adulthood, that can be quite tricky. And so, what you were talking about, I think a lot of the times when we're doing those things, we're just being and we're being in that moment and we're engrossing. I think a lot of that is just to try and create some calmness or quietness from the mind.
hmm
And it isn't bad, I think anyone who, and we were speaking about this before we started the podcast, anyone who's on this constant striving journey of being better and being on spirituality and doing this and being a better person, it can be
It's exhausting.
exhausting. It
Yeah.
really can. And, I have students who I also teach about the work that I do and I help them become practitioners. And some days, they can come to me and say, oh gosh, today it's just all a bit intense and I don't really know what to do with myself. And I just say to them, just be, right? Just switch it all off. Just be who you need to be for yourself. And the best way that you do that is listen to your body. What is it asking you, right? Don't punish your body because it's saying, I'm tired, I need a rest,
Right.
right? If that's what you need, then switch everything
I
off. The
started to
personal
do that,
development, all
Mel,
of that.
and I then worried. Um,
Yeah.
but I then worried that I was letting people down. And this is the thing as well, because I was like, I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to take some
Mm.
time away. Like I stopped drinking last year. I've started again this year. I'm going to be clear, but on my own terms.
Yeah.
But when I did that, I was like, no, I'm not going out. I'm not going out. I shielded myself, and I had to kind
Yes.
of like, because I knew I was going through something more than just giving up alcohol. I
Mm-hmm.
needed to work some things out,
Yeah.
and I was saying no, left, right, and center. And there are echoes of that now. If I don't feel like going to a certain place,
Yeah.
and that evening, I say,
Yes.
"No, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
But then when I reflect, I beat myself up a little bit by saying, "Oh, I let them down."
Mm.
So there is this kind of like weird balance, isn't there? Because obviously I don't want people to think that I'm don't care,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I think there's part of me that's like I need to preserve myself because
And I
I
think
you
that's
know
so important
yeah
because, something that happens is we can reach burnout and then feel guilty and beat ourselves up about it. And then sometimes get a little bit cross with other people or with ourselves because, we've allowed that to happen.
mhm
But when you honor that rest and what your body's asking yourself to do, it's almost like recharging your batteries. I know this term gets thrown around, but, we're constantly seeing, our phone on really low, and we don't hesitate. We don't go, oh, it's selfish of
just put
me
it
to
back
go and plug it in, right? It works the same way.
mhm
And the
mhm
best way to do that is listen to your body. Like sometimes I say to people, you might just need a day, just, having a Netflix binge,
yeah right
right? And just forgetting about everything, allowing the mind to be creative, to have fun, to experience those
I yeah
those
right
emotions that come with watching something that
mhm.
you enjoy, resting, honoring your body.
I've started to not feel as guilty for taking
Hmm.
those days. I reached a point about the reason I didn't do podcasts or haven't done many this year so far is because I've just been trying to work a few things out, and that was one of them. Was that I wasn't allowing myself to stop
Hmm.
to take a break from anything because of because of the business here and the
Yeah.
business with the t-shirts and and everything everything else that comes up being a dad and being a parent and being a husband. And whenever I think I've always been the same though, even when I was doing music, I wouldn't stop. There wouldn't be days where I'd just stop. It
Yeah.
was go, 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 go. So I got used to this mentality to the point where when I did take a day off,
Hmm.
I'd
You felt
feel
guilty.
so guilty.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of our listeners would relate to that.
100%.
I'm not the only one. I'm not
Yeah.
like, and I think that's something that I'm still getting my head around.
Yeah.
It was only when I was physically and emotionally burnt out about
Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was, and I messaged her and I said, "I have to stay at home today." I
Yeah.
couldn't go out. I
Yeah.
was just on the floor, not sick, but
Yeah.
like,
I call it energy sick.
right, okay,
Right?
okay,
You're not ill. You're not like, oh, I've got a cold or something. It is being energy sick.
yeah,
Your energy is drained. Your
yeah,
battery levels are on, 1%
yeah,
flashing. Like I need every part of my being, including my soul, right? Because your body, obviously, you're looking after it. You're sleeping, you're
mhm, mhm.
eating, not always the best way, but we kind of
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah,
And then the mind as well, because when you're a parent, you have responsibilities. When you're a business owner, there's still things that you've got to do.
yeah, yeah,
But the soul part of that, remember the mind, the
yeah,
body, and the
right,
soul,
yeah.
is the one that we tend to leave because we are ignoring that voice going, Chris,
I need to
listen,
sleep.
Mal, I need rest. Just
And that's the
stop.
thing, yeah.
Just stop.
And I
And
did, and I
yeah.
felt I let everything go. I let go of the guilt that day.
And
I
I
had no because I
bet you
had no
felt that
choice.
weight shift,
I
right?
went to pick up the boys from school, which is also another challenge for me, but that's for another day. But I went to go and do it, and I got back and I was like, I feel so much better
Hmm.
for just
Awesome.
allowing myself to do that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know that actually it benefits me massively to do it as well. And I think, it's one of those things you just feel like you need to, it's like you're a pillar holding up a bridge. And if you take a step out, the bridge is going to
Yes.
collapse.
Yeah.
But, it's
Yeah.
not, that's how you feel in your head. No,
Absolutely.
for that Wednesday, nothing collapsed.
Yeah.
Everything was there. The bridge was fine.
Yeah,
So,
and it does. And I think this is where spirituality is so important because you have to remember, and this is something that I say, and these are my personal beliefs. I'm not forcing anyone else to believe in it.
mm,
But I think when you trust and you have that faith in whatever, divine higher power that is to you, that we aren't alone. And that actually a beautiful way that I like to think of it is kind of give, God, universe, my
hmm
guardian angels, my spirit
hmm
guides, give them the wheel for a little bit,
hmm hmm
right? My feet still on the
hmm
pedal very gently, but I'm just letting them take the wheel.
hmm
And there's a huge relief with that surrender
My goodness, yeah.
and trusting and believing. And the mind will want proof that its natural way, that's what it does. But remind yourself of times where things have happened and been okay and turned out all right. And I think, earlier we were talking about really difficult life situations
Mhm.
that humble us.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there will be a lot of our listeners listening in and thinking, it got really bad, whether it was a mental health crisis or a physical crisis, where you have no choice but to rest. It's kind of like, that carpet will just get pulled right from under you
Yeah.
if you're not listening. The
Mhm.
more and more you ignore that, the
Mhm.
more something will just
Mhm.
unfold. And as difficult as those things are, it is the rest and respite that you need to then get back up again,
Mhm.
right? To keep going. And usually it's that physical burnout. And what you're probably finding, and I wonder if there's more people right now feeling this as well. I know that some of my clients have been talking about what we are now doing is, especially those of us who have been working on our mental health, on the things that we are doing, on listening to that
Mhm.
intuition, is your body's catching up.
Mhm.
Right? When
Mhm.
your mind is in the right place and your soul has really strong faith that, I just know something out there is looking out for me. I just
Mhm.
know that,
Mhm.
there's something bigger, and
Mhm.
your mind's in the right place because it has the right intentions.
Mhm.
You know the things that help you, the things that don't. You've started doing that. When your body's been living in fight or flight for a very long time, that part of that burnout and that exhaustion is just proof that your body's just trying to catch up.
Yeah, right.
So every time that we honor it and we give it time to rest, we're saying it's okay, right? You've been on fight and flight, protecting
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
going all the time,
Mhm.
nonstop.
Mhm.
And now you're exhausted,
Amazing.
understandably.
Yeah, right.
So on those days, you're just honoring it and you're just giving it the time and the space to catch up with everything else that aligns with you. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? And
it makes
and that's
perfect
where we
sense.
look at that well-being, that holistic side of the mind, the body, and the soul. If you're someone who works or does a lot with personal development, your mind could be in the great space, but if your body is constant in fight or flight, when you're not in that space, for example, when you're resting, your body goes, oh my God, there's something wrong here. Why aren't we running? Why aren't we busy? And what you're just letting the body know, it's okay, actually. You're
Yeah.
allowed to rest. You
Yeah.
don't need to be on this fight or flight. And so then the body fully surrenders. And it's usually when you get that heaviness and you feel like you're energy sick or maybe you're a bit unwell, it's just allowing the body to, what I like to call, recalibrate with everything else. And it does feel weird to begin with, but the more that you do it, the more that
Mhm.
you honor that, the more that you will see you will come out of it quicker. That's something you'll probably realize,
Mhm.
hopefully in
Mhm.
the next few
Yeah.
months. It won't take you as long, right, to recharge, to get back out there, because right, I can see myself. And the important bit is catching yourself as you're falling just before you reach that burnout. What are
Mhm.
the signs, right? Am I snappy? Am I overwhelmed? Is my mind not working? Do I feel ill but there's nothing that I could place?
Mhm.
I haven't got a
Mhm.
sore throat, I haven't got this, but I
Well,
just feel
that's
that.
the feeling, isn't it? The kind of like
Yeah.
I
And
just refer it to washed out,
yes.
right? As obviously it's very, very
Right.
basic term,
But
but
but we all have that, and we'll
yeah.
all have those signs. So,
Mhm.
if you were to think back what those signs are for you, the more that you get, in connection with your gut feeling and intuitive with what is coming up for you, the more that you can have less of those times where you're fully crashing, right?
I found that silence is valuable these days, I
Hmm.
think, and more valuable than I think it ever has been in my life, right?
Yeah.
42 years, but like it's more valuable now because everything's so chaotic, it feels.
Yeah.
And within that silence, I find ideas come for songs or
Hmm.
paintings or a podcast or whatever. And I'm usually nuts enough to let it go and kind of let it off its leash. But what I've learned to do in that silence is not, I'm full of metaphors
I
today,
love it.
but not fire arrows off in every direction to kind of like, that helps me a bit. Do you find that with people like just they have so much ambition and so many
Yeah.
things that they want to do, but go, actually, do you know what? These
Just
three
bring it
things,
back.
these three things really matter to me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking if I concentrate on those. Because I
Yes.
spent like maybe the last 2 years just going, everything, and that's what I found in the silence.
Yeah.
That's the value I found is just being able to think about what really matters.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I'm using less energy every day because I now have these 3 things that I'm working on, and it just makes
Yes,
me feel much better and much healthier as a person. And that's like a
absolutely.
little hack, 'cause, I don't know if anybody else. I'm sure there are people that just have so many ideas and so much ambition, and they really want to do something. I'm like every day I start a new business in my
And
head,
and
so
and this is the thing, because we are constantly creating, and
mhm,
we have this as a gift within us.
mhm.
And like earlier when I was saying, it was almost like you get these layers that sort of dampen who
Mm,
we are. As society, as things have evolved, things are very fast,
yeah.
and we weren't built
No,
for this
no.
instant gratification fastness all the
Mm.
time, right? I'm sure you remember when we were younger, if somebody rang you, your mum would be like, "Oh, so and so called." Like they'd have to wait all day,
I miss those days.
right?
Weirdly, I do. I know people will say, well, the convenience of what you have now and what it's brought to your life is incredible.
Absolutely.
But to the simplicity, there was less to negotiate. I
Right.
think, right? And people talk about mindfulness now because it's a word that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, you
It
were
was norm.
mindful because
Yeah.
it was just a
It was
thing, right?
just the
It was
norm.
just a norm.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't want to go back in a time machine. Like there's your telephone, Chris, and
Oh,
there's your.
I would love to. Please, can
Because I
we?
like this idea. I'm like, keep saying to Sarah, like, should I just get like an old Nokia? I
Yes.
think I'll be better. And I'm like, no, I've got my banking app, I've got my
I know.
podcasts, I've got my,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'm
We've
ready to cut the
adapted to it,
cords.
haven't
No,
we?
I did 3 days once, and I just,
Yeah,
but I
exactly.
caved in.
And you know what? And sometimes you just need that. And this is why
Mm,
people say, oh, I'd love to just go to a desert island for like a week and restore it. And we do need that. We really do. And
it's
that's
funny.
important to
Can I say
just
something,
switch
Mal?
it.
That's
Yes,
quite funny.
switch
You're
it
saying
well.
that desert. Behind my mum's house in Birmingham, there's an island in the middle of the park. It's
Right.
called Duck Island,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And it's in this middle of this like middle of this lake that's got loads of Canadian geese and whatever else.
I love
And
it.
all the time she used to say when we were growing up, "That's it. I'm packing my bags. I'm going to Duck Island." Like all the time, it
I'm
became
just
like a
going to go
thing.
and live there with the ducks.
So it just made me laugh when you said like. It makes me wonder whether she was actually like going,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I need a rest. I'm gonna
Yes,
go to Duck Island." You
exactly.
know.
And we do. We all need to, wherever that island is. Like your duck island could be in the bath with the candles on and
Duck
lights off. It might be you on your bike. Just having those moments
Yeah,
of
that's
quiet. So
one thing that really is freeing for me is this. Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
and I think it's just being okay with the silence. That the
Mm,
silence isn't the norm. The world is busy and it is noisy and it's evolving, and we are incredible for
I quite like the
adapting.
silence. Do you find that
But
people you
becoming,
meet? Sorry, I'm
yeah, yeah,
interrupting
no,
you.
no.
But do you find people you meet and work with? Do you find that people are scared of silence?
Yes, absolutely.
What?
Because it
What?
doesn't feel the norm anymore. And so my passion of what I do is bringing people back to themselves, bringing them back to that voice,
That's
right?
yeah.
That is louder than everything else. But the external noise has to quieten for
Yeah.
you to hear it. And this is,
That's sorry.
yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's
This
amazing.
is where the mindfulness comes
Mm,
in. The mindfulness brings you to that present moment, but the meditation aspect of it, and
mm,
and a lot of people might sit here and think, well, that's great for you too, because I can't meditate.
mm,
Anyone can meditate,
mm,
right?
mm.
You don't have to set this whole time. It can be a minute, it can be, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And it's just quietening that and just allowing yourself to tune into your body, what it's asking you to do, how you're feeling. Do I really want to go to that party tonight? Well, I think I should. Right.
Mm.
And then you
Yeah.
start hearing the shoulds and the
I
coulds rather than,
that's it's nice to just I know we're a bit like I'm probably like a bouncy ball today. I haven't done this for a while. But like I'm going into different directions. But talking about meditation,
hmm,
I always found the word meditation,
yeah.
something that was unachievable, not because I didn't have time necessarily, but because it
Hmm.
was like, okay, well, I need to learn how to do that. But what you
Yeah.
just said there is what I do.
Yeah.
Just quiet my mind for
Hmm.
5 minutes, usually in the morning before I open my eyes. So I wake up and I
Yeah.
stay my eyes closed, pretend I'm
Yes.
asleep for 5 minutes. But like I just do that every morning.
Hmm.
And it kind of just sets me right for the day,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And that So would that be meditation? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And absolutely. And it can happen anywhere, any place, at any time,
Mhm.
right? You know, if you have little ones and they're up before you are, I was speaking
Mhm.
to a client about this the other day, you know, and she was like, well, they actually wake me up. So I don't get those times in the morning or at nighttime.
Mhm.
Like I said, you could be, you know, having a shower and just setting that moment to just connect with your body. How does the water feel as it's washing over me, right? How am I feeling in this moment? What happened today? Meditation is like a reflection of how you're feeling, of what is coming up for you. Where am I in this present moment? Where was I earlier? Where would I like to be, you know, moving forward? And I don't mean like 10, 15 years time. And absolutely you can do that, and you can use journaling, you know, you can sit in the park and think, oh, what would I like to do for the next 5 years? You know, meditation is so broad, and I
Yeah.
think the way that sometimes it's marketed or advertised is, you know, like the person sitting in a yoga pose humming and
Right.
meditating, which is
That's
right.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Right,
You
it
know.
absolutely has its place, but if you're someone like myself and like you, I'm sure, with a very busy mind, my mind is like chatter, chatter,
Yeah.
chatter,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Even when I'm not channeling,
Mhm.
and I have to go. Okay, we're just bringing it down for a moment,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just being, just being with yourself and what you're doing, and allowing meditation. That's the most important thing that, you know, yourself and the listeners can take away today. Be whatever it is for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing has to be set in stone. You
No.
don't have to do it for a particular duration. Just whatever allows you to hear that creativeness, right?
Yeah.
Just creeping in, that inner voice that is like, this is my truth. This is what feels wonderful.
There we go.
So yeah.
Yes. I know that you mentioned beforehand that a big subject that you wanted to touch upon today is grief.
Hmm.
And I know it's everybody, right, in this world at some stage has to encounter grief.
Yes.
So, how do you approach grief, or how do you recommend your clients approach grief?
Hmm. So I think it's important to understand that grief, you know, is almost like a big umbrella term, and you have, you know, grief of relationships, situations, you know, job, career, right? And then you have the bereavement, which also comes under that umbrella term. And it was one of the things that I think for me that I didn't really realize. I always thought of grief, you know, intertwined with bereavement. That's what grief was, you know, someone you love or a friend or someone you knew departed, and that was grief and you were grieving. But actually, and I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, um, I have had two, and slight trigger warning, two miscarriages,
Okay.
and an ectopic pregnancy. And
I'm
it was
sorry, Mel.
really, although it was obviously evident, right, that there was that part of, you know, my child that had to
Mm-hmm.
grieve. It was grieving something that I had planned in my head would take place,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I often talk about some of the things that we grieve in life, whether it's, you know, the life that you imagined, maybe, you know, surviving after an accident, or having a significant, you know, big event in your life that just pulls everything that you had ever planned
Mm-hmm.
out of your journey. And I think for me, it was learning that actually grief has a space in relearning to live life differently. And you know, this is when I'm talking about like grief and the loss. So sometimes this can be grief through a diagnosis, right? That you had often I speak to parents of children with special educational needs, and they will say, you know, I had to grieve the life that I imagined my child would have, or that I would be able to create for them. And actually, you know, this new idea of how we have to live, I have to grieve the life that I planned. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to understand that we are pretty much always, or someone at some point has had to grieve something, whether it was a relationship lost, or, you know, something
Mm-hmm.
that happened, and how that is okay. It's okay for us to process that, and I suppose learn to articulate life differently, and create a new story, right, for yourself. And then we have the other side, which is the bereavement part, which is when our loved ones are departed. And a reoccurring theme, and I think that's how we got into that conversation, was the guilt that we hold around the things that were left undone,
Mm.
right, or left unsaid. And I would probably say it's one of the most rewarding things that I do as part of my mediumship work when I channel, loved ones that come through. And there's this analogy that I use where when your loved ones transition, it's like they wake up from a dream,
Mm.
right? And when they transition from this physical life into the spiritual world, they wake up and it's almost like this really long, wonderful dream.
Sorry.
That's all
Yeah,
right.
sorry.
This,
Yeah.
wonderful long dream that they had, and they wake up, and all of the heaviness, all of those low vibrational frequencies, anger, guilt, resentment,
Mm.
sadness, fear, it just shifts away.
Yeah.
But as the those of us who are here, right, who are left behind, I should say, we carry that. We carry that as part of our physical essence. And the amount of beautiful, loving clients that I have that just come to me consumed in that, consumed with the regret of not having done things, and and holding on to that guilt. And I have yet, and I've been doing this, for 4 or 5 years now, I think, with the mediumship. Um, I have yet had to have anybody come through and say, yes, you should feel guilty that you didn't call me the day that I passed.
Mm.
That never
Never
happens,
happens.
ever, because they only connect with us from our heart-centered space. They can see the light within
Mhm.
your heart
Mhm.
center. They can see your soul, your pure perfection, and that's all they want for you. So my biggest message to anybody going through that, going through bereavement and articulating grief, the loss of a loved one, even if it was a pet, right? There is unconditional love there for you and forgiveness always. So please don't carry that, because it's really heavy.
Mhm.
And I can honestly, Chris, I can see it very visually. Obviously, being a psychic medium, I can connect with people's energy, but I can just see the weight shifting
Mhm.
of my clients when I say to them, your loved one wants you to know that they love you unconditionally and that you have nothing to be sorry
There we
about.
go.
Right? It is
Yeah.
so rewarding.
It took me a while with that one because we spoke about it. I don't need to go into it now, but there was a friend that I didn't quite say goodbye to, and he passed away. So I carried that for a while, and I said to you before the show, and I just
Yes,
how finally beginning to realize that actually, do you know what, he wouldn't want this at all. He wouldn't want me to be feeling bad, and
absolutely.
so yeah, that's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, to
absolutely.
acceptance, moving on.
Yes. And I think also as well, when they come forward, they want you to make the most of every day. It's almost like they wake up from this dream called life and go, whoa, that was really short. Right. So,
Yeah,
and
right.
earlier I was saying, they're like, just live it, live every moment, make all the mistakes, obviously the
Yeah.
safe ones,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes not the safe ones, and just live. And I know sometimes it can be, a little bit cliche to say live every day like it's your last, but that is the message that time after time after time they come back and they say, I want you to be happy. And the other thing as well, which I'll add, because I'm sure lots of people will have experienced this, is when a loved one does pass, right?
Yeah.
Then sometimes they, do you want me to are we all
No,
right
you
to carry
can't. No,
on?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, of course, yeah.
Um, Sometimes we think, would they want me to do that? Have I done that the right way? Like, what was the funeral okay? Should I sell the house? Did I do the right thing by? And they always come back and say, please don't do anything, based upon, my behalf or what you think I would want you to do. As long as you're happy and
Mhm.
you feel safe and you feel settled within your decision, then go for that. right? And this is another reoccurring thing because people, we can stay, grief is really challenging. And when bereavement comes in, there's often difficult decisions we have to make, right? Sometimes there's properties to sell and there's contracts to be signed, and all of these things that happen, and it can bring disagreements. And loved ones come through and they say, do what is right for you, do it from the heart, and don't worry about doing it for my sake.
So that's the message, I guess, really for this podcast today, I guess, wouldn't it? Like,
Hmm.
to be happy and to live life every day,
Absolutely.
rest,
Yes.
allow yourself to rest,
Yes.
and yeah, take a moment for yourself as well, like meditation, quote unquote, like whatever that means to you and whatever that is for you.
Yes. And remember that you're always surrounded, right, by spirit, whether it is your loved ones, whether they, give you a sign. And this is the other thing as well, just really quickly before we wrap up, that, sometimes people aren't sure about the signs that they see. And it's a lot less around the actual sign. So let's say a feather or a butterfly or a rainbow, but more it being, and Kyle Gray, an international medium, spoke about this in his interview recently, that it's like Spirit's business card. They're just like, hey, I just left that for you just so that you know that I dropped by. So
There
people
you
are like,
go.
and I say this to my clients, like, obviously I'm a very spiritual person, but
Yeah.
I'm also very raw and honest and genuine. And I will say, obviously, a feather has come from a bird. We aren't stupid. We know that. However, it is the significance of its presence and how it's crossed your path
At that
that is
moment in
of that
time.
moment, just reminding you that there is support from the spirit world here, that your loved ones are beside you. And the other thing that I think it's probably the only thing that I find spirit comes in and says, I really wish that you could do this. And it was trust, just trust that their presence, right? Because I have, clients come to me and they say, well, I think I felt this, or I saw this, I asked for this feather, or I saw this thing and I felt like it was there, but then I think I was just being silly and making it up. And then they bring all the evidential things of where they were and they were, what they were doing. They go, oh my God, how do you know that? And I say, because your loved ones are here and they're telling me what they want what they want more than anything for you is for you to remember that they haven't gone. They haven't fully gone and left. Yes, their body has transitioned, right?
Hmm.
But their soul lives within you, right? With every breath that you take, with the unconditional love that you have. There's this beautiful book, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called The Invisible String. And it's a wonderful book for anybody articulating, grief or bereavement. And it talks about this analogy of this invisible string that is forever within us. It connects my heart, to the heart of the people that I love. And wherever they are, whether they are, in space or on the other side of the world in Australia, that invisible string is always there. And that's what your loved ones want for you. They want you to feel their presence and know that they are alive and, acknowledge them, right? If
Hmm.
you feel their presence, don't shut it down. Remember, I was speaking to you about that soul. Your soul knows, your heart knows, but the mind goes, but where's the proof?
I think,
Right?
that's what I said to you at the beginning. Like, the doors never closed for me on any subject. And, being raised the way I was, I am completely open. And
Hmm.
the reason I have a picture of Silver Phil in here in the cafe is because I want his presence here. And when,
Hmm.
however that is, whether it's spirit or whether it's just his face in here, like just having his picture, having his presence
Yes.
really
Keeping
matters
his
to me.
memory
Yeah,
alive.
really matters to me.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think it's a beautiful thing to really be open to that and not close the door. I think it's just we were saying earlier, weren't we? Like,
Yes.
don't close doors.
No.
There's no point, and don't be ignorant to anything. Just be
Yeah.
I don't think.
I think don't be afraid.
Don't
Like
be afraid.
nothing that is yours has to look the same.
Mm,
Your faith and your spirituality and your belief and your experiences can be different from mine. And that's okay. And I think that's sometimes how I struggle a little bit with, the concept of religion. And I have experienced that. I have, a very strong Catholic background in my family, evangelic, Jehovah Witnesses, lots of that. Where I've come from, originally
mhm.
from Brazil, a very, we've got the Christ Redeemer. It's a
Mm.
very Christian, strong,
Yeah, right.
upbringing. But something somewhere for me, and this is my personal journey, and I honestly respect everyone's beliefs and faiths and whatever that is for you. I just think hold on to that, whatever it is for you. For me personally, I went much more into the spirituality side of that and connecting with that rather than, having to give it a name or a title and feeling like I had to do it a certain way, because if I didn't, it felt wrong. I
Mm.
think you've got to feel into what feels right for you, even if
Exactly
it's
that.
scary.
Yeah.
And even if you don't fully understand it, it doesn't matter. As long as you know that there is hope through healing, right? Through spirituality, through your connection with source, whether it is universe, God, spirit guides, guardian angels, fairies, unicorns,
Yeah.
right? Whatever it is for
Whatever it is.
you,
Yeah.
just hold on to that, because it will give you strength in the times where you most need it. It
Yeah.
really
It
will.
will.
And it will keep you going. When you can't feel like you've got that strength for yourself, just surrender to it and ask
You
your
should have
angels
met my
to.
nan Mal. She's still here, but she has dementia now.
Hmm.
A little story like that. So my nan and granddad were like old school gypsy descendant, right?
Hmm.
So my granddad was this big burly man, loving, very loving man, but a man,
Hmm.
very, and my nan was just this tiny woman, and she used to like hand healing on people and
Hmm.
kind of. My granddad just didn't believe in any of this. He was like a very kind of shut
Yes.
off.
Hmm.
And like my nan would say something, and he'd say, and I was there. I was like about 6 years old, and he went, "Oh, you've been looking in that crystal ball of yours again, have you?" Like, and
Yes.
she pulled me into the hallway, and she went, "I've got a crystal ball under the bed.
Hmm.
His mum gave it me."
Wow.
So it's quite funny that like
Yes.
that, it's really funny. But he eventually, I think, as he got older and kind of
Yeah.
like, when he was like dying, he had cancer. I think he
Hmm.
kind of was open. He opened more. I think he.
Yes. And I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, Chris, because you find that, a lot of people, when they are faced with
Mm,
either, a critical illness diagnosis like cancer, or, they maybe go through a near death life experience, um, it it humbles you in a way that, and this is where I talk about hope, through healing, and hope through that spirituality, because when you feel like the whole world is crashing and you have nothing physical, I suppose, to hold on to, right?
mhm.
They've said this is the prognosis, this is the diagnosis. What do we all unintentionally or intentionally lean into? And it's that hope that, maybe it is heaven that you go to, whatever that looks like for you, or that, I would like to be around, right? When you get consumed with that or given that and you think, wow, and it just most of the time makes a lot of people, a lot of my clients have worked with, cancer patients. I've had family who I've lost to,
Mhm.
very critical illnesses and accidents and things like that. It just opens up, I think, that soul part of ourselves that we know. And I think for me, and this is my personal belief, what there's no wrong feeling in giving someone that hope, right? I know it's evidential because what I do is evidential. I wouldn't do it otherwise, right? But giving someone when the whole world has been ripped out, right, has been ripped
Mhm.
out of their heart, to just give them that hope that actually, even when that really difficult time happens, they will still their spirit will still be within you, still be around you,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
My father-in-law, and, past, bless his soul. It will be coming up to a year now, and his whole world changed. He was diagnosed with cancer and a very, very rare form of leukemia. And just everything about him, bless him, he just, he was afraid, but he felt at peace because his faith, he knew deep down that although physically that would be the end of that, of his journey here on earth for now,
Mhm.
right? Because reincarnation is a whole other
Yeah, yeah,
is a
right.
whole other
Yeah.
podcast. But it gave him comfort and hope and healing. And for all of us as a family, it really did. His grandchildren, very, very young grandchildren. His eldest was 8, which was my daughter. And for them to have that and hold on to that, right? That granddad is there. He's a star in the sky, or, oh, look, granddad's left us a feather,
Mhm.
right? If we can help people just take away that weight, that grief, that bereavement holds upon us, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be open to that,
Yeah,
right? If
right.
we think of the
Yeah.
miracle of the way that life creates itself, why is it any different when they transition? And I think for me, it's been the biggest strength for me, right? For many of us, when we have a very close loved one, whether it's a child or a parent or even a partner, and we can imagine our world without them,
Mm.
but we know inevitably that time is going to come, right, here in the physical world. So if I can bring comfort and healing through the spiritual work that I do, and showing people evidential, work through that, why wouldn't you? If you could just take some of that weight away, and give people that love and that comfort back into their life after a very difficult time. um
It's a beautiful thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
is.
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even
putting
if
people out
that
the
makes me crazy,
trenches. Yeah. No, sorry?
right? I said, even if that makes me crazy, because you will
Well,
have
some
people
people
that,
will think that. That's the thing. That's just the nature of what this is, though,
yeah,
isn't it, Mel? And I think
absolutely.
that's that's why I think if you're doing it with conviction,
Yeah,
and I know there's not a bad part of you at all. So that's enough for me. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think
yeah,
that's what people should take away. They're going, oh, whatever, rolling their eyes,
yeah.
or it
But
just is. And I'm
but the
sure that
right
people
people will
not.
receive it,
That's
won't
the
they?
thing. I think we said
Hmm.
the right people will receive this.
Yeah,
And I don't,
100%.
rest is noise.
Yes. No,
Oh, Mel,
yes.
I'd like to do this again at some point, and
Yes,
maybe I'll
absolutely.
become more. I need to, yeah, be more. I always give myself a hard time.
You
So
do.
I
You
should.
do.
I'm not going
And
to be more anything. I'm just
no.
going to be, I'm just going to, but we should
Yeah.
go further into maybe the clairvoyancy and what that kind of, and
Yes.
the spiritualism, what that means, and kind of like, the inner workings of it. I think really that'd be
Yes.
really nice to go
Yeah,
into, and maybe talk about the
absolutely.
Reiki next time as well, because I
Yes,
know
of
you do that, and I
course.
know that's very helpful for people, and you've
Yes.
helped a lot of people with that.
Yes,
Would you be happy
absolutely.
to? Yeah,
Yes, of
yeah,
course.
amazing.
Yeah, I would love that. And like you said, the right people are going to be like, I want to come back and listen to
Yeah,
more of that
absolutely. And
thing.
I'm not really
Um,
interested. As I say, people just don't get it. They don't get it. If they don't
yeah,
want to listen, they don't have to.
yeah,
That's the way I've approached this. And I could
exactly.
just do it every week is meant to be, but
Yes, yeah. But
so,
people will come to it, and I'm a real great believer in that. And this is something, I think sometimes people probably, look at those of us who, I don't know, maybe have a business or seem very confident and successful in their mind, right? Whatever,
mm,
and we were talking about that huge imposter syndrome. But a lot of, and this is something I was thinking about today, a lot of those of us have had to crawl out some really dark spaces, right? Whether it's ill health or whatever it is that has given you, I think, another lease of life,
yeah, it's funny because
right?
people. I don't know if everybody sees it like this, but I think people misunderstand me having chaplains and think it's just
Hmm.
it's a nice little cafe in town. It does okay. Um, but we worked so hard to get here. We
Right.
still do.
Yeah.
We were open all winter. We don't go on holiday.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no violins playing,
Yes.
but I think instead of looking somebody who,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
I think it's
it's just
easy for us, and ourselves included, to look at someone else and think, well, it's all right for them because
yeah,
they've got X, Y, and Z. And the other thing that I have been channeling, so I tend to channel a lot of things, and I think, oh, that's really interesting concept, is that success looks different for everybody,
yeah,
right? Someone's success can be as simple as, I don't know, having a meal to eat every day. Someone's success can be, putting a podcast out and it reaching that one person that was in a real dark place and
mhm,
thinking of not being here anymore, and it being that difference to
mhm,
them, right? But I think it's important that, as much as there's a lot of people that, can make a difference through their struggles, you absolutely don't have to go through a struggle or this huge life changing crisis, right? To be able to honor who you are and the gifts that you have.
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
It's okay. It's our birthright. It's our
mhm,
birthright to live a life that feels aligned and happy and abundant. And
mm.
of course, we're not going to hold that vibrational frequency all the time.
No,
You can't.
it's
It's
impossible.
right. It really is. But you can absolutely have a life that feels more balanced, that you
Yeah,
have, similar good days, bad days, or even better, more good days than bad days. And just being okay with that. With everyone's journey is different, right? Your
everyone's
soul
journey is different.
contract is completely different to mine.
100%, yeah.
And I
I
think,
agree with that.
we
So
just wake up
just
and
don't judge if you can
yeah.
help it,
Yeah.
and just
And I think we often judge so we can take ourselves out of the equation, right?
yeah, right.
But if we think, we've all got that birthright to just be able to be unapologetically our perfect, authentic self
Yeah,
in whatever way that looks like for us. And I
yeah,
always say to my clients, as long as you know deep down in your heart you're doing your best,
yeah,
that's all that you can do. If your
yeah.
intentions are pure,
Let the
uh,
crazy go.
and your heart, just go for it. Life's too
Sorry,
short not to, right? Spirit's always like, tell them, man, life is too short.
I,
Make every day count. If
there
you
you
take
go.
anything away from this podcast, take the chances, make every day count, and know that you're supported in all ways.
Thank you very much, Mel. I'll
Thank you.
speak to
Thank
you
you for
again
having
soon.
me. I had so much fun. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank
Is
you, Chris.
let's
Yes.
plug you. Is there anywhere anyone can go to
Yes.
check you out?
So you can search for me at Mal Payne on Facebook.
Yeah.
Instagram is Enlightened Soul, and
Mm-hmm.
my business page on Facebook is Enlightened Soul as well. And obviously, I'm based down here in Cornwall, but I also work with people internationally. So we can always put the link to my pages on, I don't
We'll
know,
do that.
wherever,
We'll do that.
YouTube or
Yeah.
wherever this streams. All
Thank you
right.
very much, Mel.
Thank you, Chris. It was an honor.